So if you think it's too late to start your art career just because you're in your 30s or 40s, fortunately you're wrong. And as you watch me draw this day, learn the exact steps that I took to build my art business from scratch with zero social media following or popularity so that you have a framework of actionable tips and advice that you can start to do right now. And also why you have advantages over all younger artists. Now let's tackle a big elephant in the room, which is the fact that you're definitely older than some of the other artists that you know, right? And you might be thinking to yourself that that's a huge detriment, but I want to flip that entire paradigm on its head right now. So you're probably aware of the fact that there's a lot of research, there's a lot of statistics that show that if you start something earlier in life when you're younger and then you proceed forward with it, then you're supposed to be able to just catapult yourself ahead of everybody. However, though, with art, that's not always necessarily the case. And this introduces a concept that I've kind of thought about a lot. And that's the fact that you are entering this in a later season of your life. And therefore, you're entering this with a more mature brain. And you're able to process things better, and you're able to hone in better, and you're able to also combat a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in this video. Like, just for example, like you should have worked yourself out of this phase of life where you're focused on like FOMO and YOLO, and you're doing all these things that don't necessarily contribute to what you want to do, friends. So the fact that you're an older artist does not mean that you're an inferior artist. It can actually bring you a lot of really great distinct advantages because you are ready to buckle down, you're ready to invest into yourself, and you know what you want to do, and you're not trying to please social media and please a whole bunch of people that don't mean anything in your life, right? And we're going to talk about in this video too, how do you channel all of those different experiences that you've lived up to this point, and why that will give you great distinct advantages over all the younger artists trying to do this too. And just to give you a more recent example of this, like check out how PewDiePie was able to make great gains in his artwork in just a little bit of time. And you can do that too. And there's a reason why, many reasons why, you're going to be able to make it in whatever field you want to go into. And so while it seems like everybody is really obsessed with you starting younger is the best way to go about it, we're going to question that today. And to help you with that, I want to just litter you with so much actionable advice that you're going to be able to blast ahead of everybody. And if you're ready for that, buckle up, because here we go. Now, we really have to rip off a Band-Aid on this one, because I bet that once you have this great idea and you're gonna invest into your art, and this is gonna be your year for it, and you're finally gonna start to do this, right? One of the first things I bet you're gonna do is you're gonna tell somebody about it. And I think that this all just kind of relates to probably one of the worst things that you could ever do, which is to just go ahead and blab your way around to everybody that you know. So here's what I want you to do. Don't tell too many people. In fact, I want you to ultra limit that number down to no more than 2 to 3 people in your entire life, okay? But I'm gonna give you another caveat on that note too. It's not good for you to go ahead and tell somebody when you have an idea. Don't tell anybody about it at the beginning. Don't tell those 2 to 3 people until you have put in 90 days of work into trying to figure out what you actually have to do. Because just in case you've never heard this, my friend, your ideas are worthless, okay? You'll find no shortage of people with great ideas and get-rich-quick ideas that are totally broke, and you'll find no shortage of people with great ideas that don't act upon them. So that just proves the fact that action needs to come first, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But really invest into the steps that I'm gonna outline for you coming up in a minute, as far as what do you have to do, and then tell them about it. Because one of the worst mistakes that you'll probably make is that you'll tell all your friends, tell all your family, and you'll be like, yeah, I got this great idea. I'm finally gonna make this our YouTube channel, or I'm finally gonna start my comic. It's happening. And then you won't do it. And listen, let's just say that you don't have a spouse, you don't have kids, you don't talk to your parents, you don't have a lot of friends, okay? Then just shut up and tell nobody, and I'll talk to you why that's a really powerful tool in your tool belt coming up soon, my friend. And what this instead will do is refocus you into moving your hand and not your mouth. How's that sound? Can you do that? Or who would you want to tell? And just as a personal example, I did not tell my wife I wanted to start an art YouTube channel until I created my channel, until I made a banner for it, until I came up with my concepts, until I came up with my video ideas for it. Then I told her, and it made that conversation a lot easier for her. See how that works? Now, you've got amazing ambitions, right? I bet that you're super excited about it. And this will typically follow your average model of motivation, where you're gonna be highly motivated once you start, and then that's gonna slowly taper off and then take sometime towards like the first couple months of when you actually start something. So what I wanna let you know is that you have great goals, but right now they suck. And the reason why is because Big, huge goals are completely overwhelming to our brains, okay? We literally cognitively cannot handle that well according to psychology, because when we take a look at a great big lofty goal, it is so stressful to think about how do we do this and we don't know how to do it. Instead, I want to have you adopt the philosophy of eating an elephant. No, friends, please don't go out and slaughter an elephant. Not what I'm saying. It's just an analogy, okay? If I were to ask you, how do you eat an elephant? If you've never heard this before, you would say one piece at a time, okay? Think about it. You don't just get presented a big giant T-bone steak and then you just shove your fork and shove it in your mouth, right? No, I mean, I hope not. I don't know. I can't do that. I'm not a snake. But for you, my friend, instead, what you want to do is take a look at your goal right now, and then you're going to create a system of checkpoints and outline overall a framework for your overall success, okay? And with that, you just want to think about it like this. Let's say that you want to go ahead and create a comic. You want to create a checkpoint for every major and minor milestone on there, because a lot of times what you'll be like is, okay, I want to create my first chapter. That's too big. You need to break that down more. Again, major and minor things, sketching all the pages, outlining the story, creating the concept art for the characters, doing the lines for each page individually, then going through and doing all the shading. Create a separate checkpoint, literally like page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, okay? Let's say that you wanted to go ahead and create your portfolio to submit and be hired by Blizzard, okay? What are your portfolio pieces, okay? What do you have to do for that? Come up with a really great systematic list of everything that you must accomplish on there, and then subdivide it out too. You can't create a goal that you can't take action on today. And I'm gonna talk to you in a minute on why you need to focus on that and how to do that more effectively than what you're doing it right now. And what this will do is it will allow you to decompartmentalize everything that you're doing and just say, that's what I can start to work on in the next 5 minutes, and so that you don't sit there and go, not today. Another big reason that this is so successful is that it creates a motivation factor for you, because when you can actually look back at that and say, wow, I did all this, that's amazing, you'll feel good about yourself. And listen, if you're the type of person that does not like to create lists, let me just reframe this for you. Don't call it a list, okay? Instead, call it a mission, call it a quest, call it an adventure. I don't care what you call it, but a lot of times you can trick yourself into really liking it based on the terminology that you give to it and the power that you ascribe to the word. So for me, for example, like when I used to create lists at my job when I was younger, I did not call them a to-do list, because we hate that usually, right? The faster you associate what you're doing with work, the less you're going to want to do it. So instead, I used to call them my quests. I literally had like a little notebook and it said the quest book on the front of it, because I felt like I was like an RPG adventurer. So I'm wondering, what type of checkpoints do you need to create, and have you done this before? And let me just tell you in a minute why that probably didn't work out for you and how to tackle it better. All right, I'm gonna talk to every bird out there right now, everybody from your morning doves to your night owls, and why you probably think that you need to wait for the right time. And my friend, the thing I want to let you know right now is that if you're waiting for the right time already passed, okay? A lot of times when I talk to artists, they'll be like, well, Sean, I'm most optimal between this time frame to this time frame, or, I'm best in order to work in the morning, but I have to go to work. Or are you the type of person that does best right after work, like in that 3 to 7 p.m. zone, and you're like, but I got kids. And again, now we're gonna go back to that again. You're gonna blame your kids for why you're not doing the things that you are, instead of using them to compel you to do the things that you should be doing. So the thing I wanna let you know, friend, is that this is not hard, but it's just conditioning. And the reason that you think that is literally just conditioning. Yes, there are definitely, just to put it out there are peak times in your day where you are gonna do the best. But for those of us that have obligations, and for those of us that work a job, it's pretty impossible to hit all of those unless you do this. Train for your optimization. So don't instead fall into the trap of whining about why you can't do it here, or you can't do it there, or your peak hours are from this. I mean, you're not a business. I don't understand why you think that you've got open to close hours. Instead, just look at, when do you have time? The most convenient time for you is the best time to do it for you. Just to give you some personal examples for you right here, I used to go ahead and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get ready for work, get dressed, then I'd sit down and I would draw or work on my commissions for the first hour and a half, and then I would go to work, okay? I also have done it in the reverse of, I would go ahead, and this is typically what I do nowadays is, I kiss my kids, so they go to bed, and then my wife goes to bed a little bit later, and then I just sit down. That's my me time. It's my therapy time. In a lot of ways too, it's my de-stress time. And so I could literally sit down and be like, well, you know what? I'm best between, 10 and 2 or whatever, but Instead, y'all, that is not actually true. It's just your conditioning. And for everybody out here that's like, oh, well, I'm a night owl, so I can't work in the morning. Okay, here's all you need to do. Just go ahead and stay up until your ridiculous night owl time, and then go ahead, wake up early, and then you'll be ridiculously exhausted the next day, and then go to bed early, and then all of a sudden, if you do that for a week, you will become whatever you want to be, and you'll be a morning dove. A big thing too on this is look for your pockets. You can do this on your lunch breaks too, okay? Look for the time that is most convenient for you, that is an available pocket of time for you to do this. You cannot and should not be able to only work at peak optimal times. Y'all, you do not have to think about yourself as you are programmed in order to do one thing and not another. We're not robots. Instead, look at your availability when you have time for it and evolve that into your habit. Now, take a look at that list that we made earlier. One of the worst reasons that people don't get it done is because they look at the totality of that list, okay? And what that's going to do is it's probably going to stress you out. It's going to cause you some level of anxiety. You are then going to look at that list and go, okay, let me go do something else instead. I don't want you to stay away from art. I want you to stay into art. So the best thing I'm going to advise you on is some hacks that I've learned as far as what will do you well to actually accomplish your goals, your tasks, your quests, whatever you want to call them, okay? And it has to do with how you need to subdivide your tasks, okay? Because again, you're going to look at a massive framework of everything you got to do and your brain's going to blow. So instead, just take a look at it like this. I want you to create 3 categories for everything you have to do. And it's going to be, what do you need to do daily? What do you need to do weekly? What do you need to do monthly? And what this will do is it will allow your brain to ease up, and you're going to see a lot of your minor checkpoints contribute to a very large checkpoint. Like if you need to sketch all 20 pages of your comic, then that relates to okay, all pages sketched out. Take a look at, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do this month in order to contribute to that? And another big thing I would say is what this does is it allows your brain to process it a lot easier and just say, okay, I need to get this done immediately. It's on the horizon, and this is going to be later, or it's going to be something that an amalgamation of tasks are going to relate to. Another great thing is every single day, just pick 3 things that you want to accomplish. No more than that. No more than 3 things a day, no more than 3 things a week, no more than 3 things a month. Because the issue with lists is that a lot of times people will stay busy but not productive. And when you are actually tackling a list, you're gonna go ahead and instead feel more accomplished because you actually did something about it. And this will combat your anxiety or your feelings of depression of you're not doing enough about it. And when you can actually see and feel that you accomplished something concrete, you are gonna feel more compelled and more motivated, because you want motivation, don't you? This is how you're gonna do it. Just fit them into these 3 categories of what do I need to do today, what do I need to do this week, what do I need to do this month, and you are gonna get there so much faster and feel good about it. Now, as you're going down this path of being an artist, and it's a very awesome, exciting path, but just real talk, it's also a very arduous path, okay? And let me just ask you, are you somebody who maybe in the past, you've kind of given up on this, or have you kind of gone in and out, you've kind of weaved your way through this, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, I've had other priorities, and it's okay because it's just me? Well, my friend, listen, the way that I want to represent this to you is as such. If you're the type of person, and tell me down below if this is you, are you the type of person who's okay with letting yourself down, but you're not okay with letting other people down? You might be thinking that you being an artist and you pursuing something, whether it's that webcomic, whether it's that career, whether it's that freelance business, whether it's that side hustle, whatever it is, you are not failing yourself, you're failing everybody else around you. And here's how I want to represent this to you, is because every single time that you allow yourself to give up, you're also failing everybody else because you are giving them a lesser version of you, okay? You're showing up less, you're showing up at a devalued version of yourself. You're not giving them 100% because you're always thinking in the back of your mind, you're ruminating up on that. You're gonna get grouchy, you're gonna be a lot less present for your kids. And just real talk, are you a parent right now? All right, because here's the way I want to represent this to you as well. If you are okay with just giving up and just letting this thing go, then you're also teaching your children that it's okay to give up on their dreams. And so let me just shift that for you for a second here. What if instead that you looked at everybody in your life, not as a dutiful obligation, but as a reason to actually succeed? What if you taught your kids how to actually pursue their goals. Because don't we always teach kids when they're super young that, oh yeah, you can do anything and the sky's the limit, but then at some point we hammer into them reality, whatever that is. And so instead, if you start to see that every obligation is a reason to fail and switch that to every obligation that you have is a reason to succeed, because I'm just gonna be real, like, do you wanna look into your kid's eyes and say like, well, mommy, daddy could have been something, but then I had you. And I hear that excuse all the time. And honestly, like for me, I don't ever want my boys to be the reason why I fail. I want them to be the reason why I succeed. And who in your life are you really battling for that you want to improve their life? Because what if you invested into this and then you were able to just radically transform everybody in your life? Wouldn't that be amazing? Because you can do that if you're able to actually sit down and prioritize that and make every setback into an opportunity. How's that sound? Now, since you have now made the decision, you've made the commitment that yes, I want to do something with my art. You have a project in mind, you have a career in mind, you have a side hustle in mind, right? You might be thinking to yourself, man, I feel really bad that I wasted that time. A lot of times what happens too, by the way, is that we as older artists, we kind of enter into this phase because we have used so much of our time without art, and then we're attracted back into art because we've kind of gotten a glimpse into like, well, this wasn't really that great without it. Is this you too? Because I remember feeling that way too. And so what I want to encourage you just to feel right now is that you should not feel bad for the time lost, because just to be honest with you, most 20-year-olds waste that entire decade and do absolutely nothing productive with it. So instead, my friend, what I want to encourage you is that you need to use time. You need to see time not as something fleeting that has gone away from you and you'll never get back, but instead as a valuable resource that you are going to exploit for your intended purposes. And now the best way for you to do that though is, y'all, lock into this. You gotta go ahead and make this a priority for you, okay? And to do that, you need to go ahead and you need to schedule out some time. Now, just to oppose really popular advice, no, I do not think that you need to go ahead and create art every single day. I do not think that, because a lot of times, especially for us as older artists, that's really hard to do. Like, just real talk. If you've got kids, if you've got family, if you've got a spouse, and something comes up, that is gonna demand a lot of time from you. So instead, here's a more manageable version of this, is just go ahead and take a look at a week. You can take a look at the next 7 days and just determine how much time do I want to dedicate towards this. You've got time, and I'm gonna teach you how to make the best time and also how to exploit the time pockets that you think you have and you don't have in order to do this. But here's some basics here. Take a look, just pick a number. How many hours a week do you want to do? Because I often find that people will feel terrible about what they don't do in a day, but they'll totally overlook what they'll do in a week, a month, and a year. Like, just for example, if you were to dedicate just 10 hours a week, and just think about that, that's not that much over the course of a week. And again, this is something that means something to you, right? So you should be pretty charged up to do that. That is 40 hours a week, and that's 480 hours a year. That is hugely substantial over you just working off your whims, isn't it? And the best way you want to think about this, if you're like, oh, I don't really like schedules, I don't like to feel boxed in, I don't like to feel like I'm crammed into some type of structure on this. Listen, you thinking that a schedule is going to delete freedom from your life is the opposite of the effect. Because in reality, creating a schedule for something that you want to do and you want to pursue and that you love is actually the best reflection of your self-respect for yourself and your ability to love yourself. Because if you're not willing to invest into yourself, who is supposed to do that? Who are you waiting for to give you just the green light in order to do that, my friend? So no, friend, a schedule is not the absence of freedom. It is how you create freedom in your life. So I just want to ask right now, are you making art a convenience for you, or are you making it a priority for you? Because this is the first thing you have to do no matter what task you want to do and how you want to use your art in order to better your life. So how many hours do you want to dedicate a week? It's not that hard. Now let me talk to you about the folly of the young, and this has to do with what you have as a massive advantage over all younger artists that you can now channel. And a lot of times this relates to what I tend to notice makes a lot of artwork look very generic. So a lot of younger artists are all exposed to the same exact experiences, okay? And they're exposed to the same exact stimulus, and they're exposed to the same exact media. But for you, as a more mature artist, just going back to that more mature brain right now, you have an awesome weapon. You have lived experiences. You have more familiarity with things. You have more exposure to different things. So I want to ask you, how are you channeling those lived experiences into your artwork. If you're doing illustrations, okay, you know about the subtleties of how a facial gesture or the way that the body's turned or the way that a hand is gestured in order to convey a story. You can think about too, how do different colors emulate different mood? You can also think about it like this, like if you're designing characters or you're designing, let's say creatures, for example here, okay? Here's a big issue that I see all the time. If you're somebody who likes to make dragons, and shout out down below if you are, let me just tell you one of the worst, most simple practices I see so many dragon artists make is that they only look at other dragons. And y'all, if you've never known this before, dragons aren't real creatures. So a lot of younger artists will just take a look at other dragons by other artists and just try and like copy and paste different things. But for you, friend, you can think about it like this. You know that there are different creatures inside of a dragon, okay? Especially an Eastern versus a Western dragon. And you can create your own dragon. And you want to think about the different biomes that they live in and what creatures live in those biomes. Like a frost dragon is not going to be the same as like a near water dragon is not going to be the same as a forest-based dragon, and what creatures would influence that. Another really awesome example is, hey, are you creating any type of a story, whether it's a video game, whether it's a manga, anything like that? Think about how most younger artists have literally lived the first 25 years of their life living the same thing as everybody else. But for you as an older artist, think about what is a meaningful message that you want to send to everybody, both in your age group, above your age group, and below your age group too. That's a really powerful tool, isn't it? Have you ever considered that? Because this will be game-changing for you and will make your stuff way more interesting. Try it out. Now, this next piece of advice, it's gonna hurt at first, but I'm gonna tell you, if you actually stick to this, you are going to thank me in 2 years, and here's why. Initially, when you're starting off, okay, one of the best things about you being an older artist is that you should be a lot more secure in what you're doing and what you actually want to do. And one of the most horrific issues that I see with younger artists, and it's because they're listening to a lot of honestly bad advice about this, is that they're trying everything and they're like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna start a Patreon, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel, I'm gonna sell at conventions, and I'm gonna start commissions, and I wanna go work at Blizzard and Riot. Not to say that any of those ideas are bad, but when you're trying to do all of it at once, it's just crazy town. You can't do that, okay? So one of the best things I wanna advise you on right now is, at this stage in your life, y'all, you need to pick one thing. Start with one thing, okay? This is where, again, like this is like the first mound for your sandcastle. You wanna just pick that one thing, and I want you, again, this is gonna sound painful, to just hunker down and just do that one thing, focus on that for the next 365 days. So this is real simple. If you're like, well, Sean, I don't really know what that one thing is. It's not that hard, y'all. Let me just ask you this. If you could do something for the next 10 years and you would love it, whether or not you got paid for it or not, what would it be? That's your one thing, okay? And now some of you are gonna have this reaction because I know how you think, and you're gonna say like, well, Sean, I'm a creative. I like so many things. I have so many interests. Great. You're not special on that. We all are, okay? You've got a lot of great ideas, but you need to just focus on one thing that you will be known for. When you think about your favorite companies, when you think about your favorite artists, they all got discovered from doing one thing, and then they built out from there. Y'all, this is not pigeonholing you, it is focusing you like a laser. How's that sound? And so this heavily opposes this ridiculous cast a wide net and catch no fish option that you've probably heard before, right? And screw diversifying everything that you're doing, and we'll talk about that and why that's a bad idea today too. But you need to instead just wholly focus down into this version of yourself, because this will bring you the greatest success and the fastest success. And just to give you a personal example, I started out as an art teacher, then I started my freelance business, then I started my YouTube channel where I teach people how to create art and how to grow their art business. Then I started my Art Mentorship, and I've got stuff planned in the future I can't wait to tell you about when that time comes. That's been my path, and you'll notice that all of those things relate to one thing. See how that works? That's a great sustainable model for you, and it's one you've probably never been told, right? But listen, y'all, you can do anything in this life, but you cannot do everything. And I really think that you're ready to accept that, aren't you? Now, the next big strategy I'm going to introduce you to, and it's going to really make a world of a difference, is if you go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button so I can continue to drop little pearls of wisdom for you right here every single week, okay? And if this is helping you, by the way, please share it with somebody that you know and love so that it can help them too, help them get through this tough time, and help them envision and help them create the best artistic version of themselves, because that's what I'm wholly focused on. And then also, and now that you did that, and now that you paid the price for this course, let's go through the next step. And now that that's out of the way, make sure you start doing this. Now I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that you're probably where you're currently at right now It's not where you want to get to, right? And I'm going to tell you why that mindset right now is destroying your progress. It's sabotaging you. And it's why most artists will never make it to do the things that they want to do. And that's so sad because you got a great idea, don't you? And then we're also going to take a look at how do you flip this on its head and how do you take action upon this. For example, most artists are going to not be satisfied until the end. And are you like this? Are you somebody that like you don't like an artwork until the end, or you hate the process all throughout? And this typically gets entangled with this mindset of like, you got to love the process or you got to trust the process. I'm just going to be real for you. That process sucks so much of the time, doesn't it? Like literally, I always talk about this, and I talked about this in my previous video, about how like the middle of your project, it sucks. It's what's called the valley of despair, where you're just like, I hate everything about this. And that's okay, and that's not abnormal, and you're not a lesser than artist just because you don't like some part of your process. That's perfectly normal. I go through my ugly phases in my artwork too, okay? But the thing that you instead want to do is incentivize your progress. Instead of you being negative about it, instead of you turning on your computer or rolling up to your canvas, whatever it is, and you just go, ugh, this sucks today. And I know how that feels way too much, way too real. I understand that. So I totally promote you incentivizing your artwork and your process by doing the following things. For example, what's your favorite candy? And can you go ahead and think of a way that you can create bite-sized pieces of that? So just for example, if you're on the train of like, I love Skittles or I love M&Ms, okay? Get a bag of that. Go ahead and have 2 to 3 pieces of that every single session that you sit down and you make art. Again, this goes along with your schedule, okay? When you're faithful in your schedule, have a few. Don't have the whole bag, y'all. I don't need anyone getting diabetes off of my idea, okay? Another thing too is if you prefer the more solid chocolates, go ahead, take a cutting board and a knife and literally chop them up into bite-sized pieces. And just to tell you a really great hack that I learned from positive psychology is that if you use a small piece of chocolate, it will start to rewire your brain by giving you a quick dopamine burst and therefore rewarding your brain every single time that you execute an action. So we can use that to brain hack ourselves. Another one too is like, do you have a favorite beverage that you enjoy? So like for me, I love a good Diet Coke, and that's typically my jam. Like I'll go out and crack a can and chug it after every single one of my sessions. So I'll feel good. Here's another great thing too, y'all. I want you to have positive self-talk every single time that you're done. I want you to transform yourself, even if you're not 100% on what you just did. Just say to yourself something to this effect. This is what I've learned to do, and what I say a lot of artists don't do is I'll say to myself, Sean, great job on that. Sean, you could have slacked off. You could have gone and played video games. You could have given in and said, I'm too tired, whatever that means. And instead, you went down and you actually got some stuff done. You made progress. I'm proud of you for your progress. I'm proud of you for sticking it out. I'm proud of you for working through that hard area. I'm proud of you for working on that face, even though it still looks a little funky, and we're gonna fix that later, aren't we, Sean? But using positive self-talk is a great, free, and openly available resource for you to incentivize your progress. And what that will do is it will train you to actually, ready for it, you're going to be addicted to your artwork in the best possible way. And that's not a bad thing, is it? Because if you were addicted to something that you loved and it was positive for you and it reaped the benefits of it, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I don't think you have anything to feel guilty about. What about you? You need to protect your delicate artistic ecosystem. And I'm gonna say that I'm gonna speak right now to the majority of artists that don't have a really great support network, did not grow up with a great support network. And tell me down below, like, were people very dismissive about your opinions on art or your ambitions to actually wanna be an artist or to do the thing or go work here? Or were you told that, you know, artists don't make money, you can't do that, that's not realistic, whatever that means? Are you in that boat? Because that's how I've always grown up too. And the thing that I've learned is that you need to instead expect nobody to support you. That's right. Like, I know that that sounds horrible, but I want to bring it back to what I've learned. If you are somebody who, again, if you're going to blab your mouth and tell everybody in the world and tell everybody about all these great ideas, okay? You're not doing enough, and therefore you're not inspiring confidence. And just real talk, you're not inspiring any confidence in yourself. You're not building any trust with yourself. And this is why typically people will combat some of the advice that I give and be like, well, Sean, that's easier said than done. Well, of course, because what does it take for you to say anything? Nothing. You suck in some oxygen and you blow it right back out and sounds come out of your face, right? That's it. So you literally assume no risk, and it takes nothing from you, and you give nothing back. So instead, my friend, what I want you to do is to tell absolutely nobody until it actually comes up, until they ask about it, until you actually have something to show for it. Because one of the things I learned is that if you actually have concrete metrics and proof for why you are doing the things that you're doing, then it's impossible for people to actually tell you to your face, that's stupid, that's not a good idea, that won't work out. Like, just as an example here, I had so many people tell me that going to be an art teacher was a stupid idea and I would never get hired. I got hired literally 6 months after I graduated from college, okay? And then also I had people tell me that, oh, a freelance business, that's never gonna work out. That market's dead, you're not gonna make any money. 10 years later, now they respect me for it. Why? Not because I told them I was gonna do it, because I did it and I have proof of it. And that also gives you a measure of confidence against anything that they say back to you. Like, it's really hard for anybody to tell me like, well, Sean, the art market said, really? Check my PayPal account, it says otherwise. And another thing that this entails too is that you should totally, at this point in your life, you should not care about anyone's opinion other than the people that you actually care about. Especially as you're older in life, you start to have a smaller and smaller circle of opinions that you care about. And my friend, unless somebody is telling you something and they're in the position that you want to be in, they're living the life, and they have the money that you want, and they have the art career that you want, screw their opinions, because they don't know what they're talking about and they're not anybody that you need to listen to. Again, you need to protect your artistic ecosystem so that you can actually grow it, okay? You don't want anything casting shade onto the fragile seedling that is your artistic potential. And the way you're gonna do that is expect nobody to support you, but give them proof that they should. How's that? Now, no matter what actual endeavor you want to get yourself into, again, you want to go work for Riot, or you want to illustrate for Magic the Gathering, or maybe you want to go ahead and you want to create that comic that you've been talking about forever, right? Now, one of the best things that you do will also devolve itself into one of the worst practices for you. And I'm gonna talk to you about comparison and how we can shift that right now. So most people are gonna do the following. They're gonna go ahead and they're gonna follow a bunch of accounts, they're gonna watch a lot of artists, and then they're gonna feel horribly dejected. And has this been you, friend? Because I know how that feels too. And you're gonna look at them versus where you are, and maybe they're younger than you too, and then that makes you feel like crap too, because you're comparing yourself on ages, not on product. And the best way I wanna advise you to move forward is to do this. Go ahead, conduct a deep analysis of what you want to do and how to get there based on people that are actually successful. Because, my friend, I want you to remember this forever, success leaves clues. So just for example, as I've gone through my YouTube channel journey here, I've gone ahead and I've analyzed other YouTube channels and I've said, okay, what are their thumbnails like? Why are people clicking on them? What type of content? Oh, what's their editing look like? And I don't do that and then feel like crap about it. Instead, I want you to be very, very specific on it. And here's what you want to do. Ask yourself this. What specific things are they doing that I can start to do? What's one thing that they're doing that I can start to do in mine? If you're making a concept art portfolio, okay, cool. Oh, that person got hired? What do they have in their portfolio? Find their website. Okay, cool. I can see this is the type of stuff. Okay, I can start to make that type of artwork. I can start to make my line work look a little bit more like that. So if you actually have something concrete to latch onto, it's not so ambiguous and you can actually hit it. And this is a way for you to conduct a positive analysis and produce positive comparison versus you looking at somebody else and saying, well, they're good, and I suck. So instead, be very deliberate in your analysis of them, because if you're comparing, you're feeling like crap. If you're analyzing them, you're looking for data. And that's how I want to ask you, what are you doing right now and who are you analyzing in order to grow, in order to get better, in order to start the thing that you want to do? A big thing for me too, like just as an example, I'm in the freelance business, okay? And I continue to take a look at everybody that gives advice for art commissions. And what I'll generally tell you is that 90% of people giving advice at art commissions suck at it. They have horrible pricing, they have bad practices, and just another thing you start to do, just like I did, start to evaluate the people giving you advice too, because one of the things I found is that when I was trying to learn how to freelance and increase everything that I was doing, I learned that honestly, like most people giving freelance advice can't even crack $100. And I was like, well, clearly that's not working. And so sometimes too, you analyzing what doesn't work is just as valuable as analyzing what does work. So let me ask you, like, who are you analyzing and what are you specifically looking for out of that? All right, now I'm gonna speak to a large room of adults watching this right now, and I really gotta tune you into this, because if you have something great and meaningful for you and you're creating art as a priority for you now, friend, a big thing that we have to come to agree is that there's a lot of things you're doing that are a complete waste of your time. And I think that a really large folly of artists across all age groups is that you're going to want what somebody else has, but you're not gonna want the journey to get there. So what I'm gonna advise you on right now is how you can cut the fluff and keep all that stuff in check. And here's what I call the 30% rule. So basically, I want you to take a look right now at how much media consumption time and how much time wasting you're doing, and just say to yourself, okay, I am only allowed to use 30% of my art making time into that fluff time. And let's just call it fluff because that's what it is, because that's not helping you accomplish your dream, is it, friend? So just as an example, I love video games. You probably love them too, right? So for me, I'm gonna take a look at, again, what's my weekly hourly goal, say 10 hours, okay? Therefore, I only allow myself 3 hours of media consumption. Now, personally, I work 20 plus hours across my entire art business, but again, only 30%. And now this also relates to some other things you're gonna feel a little uncomfortable about, but again, I'm gonna speak to the adults in the room here because that's what you are. This can also relate to how much time are you spending with your friends? Because if your friends are getting pissy with you because you're not going out with them and you're not doing all this stuff with them, and they're not supporting you on your goals, if they get mad at you or they give you crap every single time that your girlfriends call you up and they're like, hey, come on out, girl, and you're like, nah, I gotta go work on this or I gotta make that, and they give you crap for that, then they're not the best friends for you. If you wanna figure out who your best friends are, start seeing them less, and then you'll figure it out real fast, okay? And so this can also relate to how much time you're spending with other people or doing other things that don't necessarily relate back to what you're doing. And the best sustainable way to do this is, again, you have to insert that, but you have to be in control of it. You have to be okay with looking at your watch when you go out with the boys and saying like, okay, hey guys, listen, it's been fun, but I gotta head out, I gotta go work on something, or I gotta go do something, okay? If you can actually say that, and they don't get mad and they don't stop inviting you, guess what? You have real friends. Otherwise, you have convenience friends. And that relates back to media consumption. It relates back to phone time, how much time you spend playing video games or watching anime or watching TV, or again, spending time with other people too. This of course does not relate to your family. Like I don't tell my wife and kids like, okay, look, I've hit my maximum right now. But otherwise, you need to control your variables for your success. And one of the best ways to do that is you have to cut the fluff, because if you're willing to just go ahead and overly invest into everybody else and everybody else's vision and version of what they've done creatively, like if you're playing a video game, you're really just encouraging somebody else's efforts and you're discouraging your own. So then therefore, I just want to advise you on this one. If you want to do what you want to do, you have to be okay with saying no to some of the things and sacrificing some of the things that are not that important so that you can reach a higher level of importance and therefore reach a higher level of fulfillment and happiness forever. Are you willing to do this? Because it will be a major game changer. Now I'm gonna go on a limb here and say you're probably a very busy person, right, my friend? You do a lot of things, you have a lot of obligations, you gotta work, you got a family, you gotta take care of stuff, you gotta mow the lawn, you gotta do laundry, dishes, all that stuff, right? So one of the best things that I've learned in order to really get to a better place a lot faster is this idea called habit stacking, okay? And we do this in positive and negative ways, and I wanna give you some great versions. I wanna warn you about some really ugly versions that you might be doing right now. A great way that I've kind of learned how to do this, just as an example, and I kind of adopted this when I entered my doctorate program, because right now I'm currently going through it, and I found myself reading a lot, but then also, that requires me to sit down a lot, and I would feel lazy and I would feel myself getting fat. So one of the things I would start to do is I had an exercise bike, so I said, okay, if I'm going to read, I have to get on the exercise bike. So then that way, I'm getting some exercise, I'm not feeling sedentary, and that yielded wonderful effects because now I read a lot faster, I read a lot more intently, and I absorb a lot more. It's a really great habit stack. Another thing too that I do is, do you watch TV or do you watch anything while you're drawing? So one of the things I learned is that if I actually watch some content that I only need to listen to, I don't need to watch, then that also increases my productivity. So what I tend to do a lot is while I'm drawing, I have my phone up, I have my AirPods in, and I'm just watching motivational content or I'm learning about business, because a lot of the time as you're going through and you're investing into yourself, you're going to be like, oh, well, I have to learn about business. I have to learn how to do taxes. I have to learn how to do this and that. And you're going to try and like make that excuse to like, you need to wholly devote yourself into that. Instead, my friend, queue up a whole bunch of videos, like throw them all on your watch later list like I do, and then just go ahead and watch that while you are working, okay? And then if you hit something that's really awesome, just take a pause, save that to a list so you can come back to it later and keep going from it, okay? Now, let's talk about negative habit stacking on that note too, because we negatively habit stack all the time. So like for me, one of the things that I've recently started to notice is that every single time that I sit down and I will like watch a show, I also pair it with food. I realize like that is so ugly and toxic of me, because I'm literally making an emotional association with every single time that I sit down and relax, I have to eat. And do you do this too? Because I've realized like I can't do that anymore. So one of the things that I'm now starting to shift that towards is if I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch my favorite anime or show, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna grab some free weights, I'm gonna grab some resistance bands, I'm gonna work out while I do it. And then that way, again, I'm more compelled to actually be a healthier version of myself that I can then bring forth artistically. And then on my earlier note, another thing that we start to do a lot for negative habit stacking is that you will create habit stacks with competing interests. So just for example, if you're really trying to invest into your artwork and you're also really trying to watch your favorite show, you can't do that, okay? Especially if you're trying to watch like a subtitled show. So you gotta give up one for the other. You might need to give it up for ambient sounds, you might need to give it up for some lo-fi music. Like for example, when I read, I realize I can't sit there in complete silence, it makes me fall asleep. So what I started to do is I found lo-fi channels I can listen to on that. So what positive habit stacks do you want to form or are you currently doing right now? Share it out. Now let's talk about one of the biggest reasons that you have and probably one of the biggest obstacles you perceive, and that's your work. Are you somebody right now that doesn't even work in an artistic field, or are you somebody that wants to shift to working in a creative industry, but you currently have a job, right? And you're gonna be somebody that's like, well, Sean, I want to do this, but I work and I spend so much time and so much energy. I can't possibly do this. And listen, friend, I know how that works because I built everything I have right now while working full time, and I continue to, okay? It doesn't have to be your death sentence. And to show you how to do this in the best possible way, I made an entire video for you right here. So go ahead and go check it out. And this helped you, share with someone that you know. Thanks so much. See you next time.